but I think here we go live. Namo Ramana. A very warm welcome to everyone for the Sunday Satsang today with Mr. Michael James for devotees of Ramana Kendra Delhi. May I now please request Narayanji to initiate with the puja and Upesh Saram and Ashtotra. Narayanji.
Om Achyutaya Namaha, Om Anandaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha. Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivardhanam Chaturbhujam Prasannavathanam Dhyaye Sarva Vighnopashantaye. Ayam Murta Samusardo Chidamundo Mando no Pranando Ayam Murta Samusardo Tadeva Laganam Sadinam Tadeva Tarabalam Chandrabalam Tadeva Vidyabalam Devabalam Tadeva Lakshmipate Tengrigam Smarami Om Bhuva Om Suva Om Mahar Om Jana Om Tava Om Satyam Om Tassodarvavaniyam Bargo Devasya Dhimihi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya Om Abhajutra Samradam Gurmu Saram. Namo Samasta Durga Shaitvarasi Parmeshu Kityartam Karishyamalasya Karma Nirvana Prasattam Madhav Vignesabhijam Karsiye Prithviya Nirtulsi Sudalam Chandagurma Devada Prithviya Dhruva Bhogadikam Vishnunathruda Tvam Satarimam Devi Guvitram Gurudasanam Agamartam tu Devanam Kamanartam tu Rakshasam Andaram Param Yado Devadavan Ranjanam. Namo Samasta Durga Shaitvarasi Parmeshu Kityartam Govinda Siddhyartam Madhav Vigneswara Pujam Karshye Gananatva Ganapatikum Avame Kavim Kavinam Satravam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspade Arusunam Tusidanam Asmin Daritrabimbe Mahaganapatim Dhyayami Mahaganapatim Avamayami. Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Samam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Adyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Padyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Asmaniyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Upasari Kattanam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Snananandaram Asmaniyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Vastradatam Akshadam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Yajno Vidartam Akshadam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Gandham Dharayami Samarpayami. Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Gandhovri Akshadam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Algaranatam Akshadam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Aritra Kumkumam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatiye Namah Pushpai Bhujayami Om Kumugaya Namah Om Ekadandaya Namah Om Kapilaya Namah Om Gajagarnagaya Namah Om Lambodharaya Namah Om Vigadaya Namah Om Vighnarajaya Namah Om Vinayagaya Namah Om Dhumagedave Namah Om Ganatakshaya Namah Om Balachandraya Namah Om Gajananaya Namah Om Vakradundaya Namah Om Purvakarnaya Namah Om Erambaya Namah Om Kandamurjavaya Namah Om Siddha Vinayagare Namah Om Shankara Moksha Vinayagare Namah Om Atupurapade Vinayagare Namah ओम महागणपतिये नमः। नानाविध परिमलपत्र पुष्पाणि समर्पयामि। धूपार्थं समर्पयामि। धूपार्थं समर्पयामि। अक्षतां समर्पयामि। ओम भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। देवसवितुर्वरेण्यं सत्यं प्रसन्नामि। अमृतस्तु अमृतं स्वाहा। ओम प्राणाय स्वाहा। ओम भवानी स्वाहा। ज्ञानाय स्वाहा। ओम उदानाय स्वाहा। ओम समानाय स्वाहा। ओम ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। कोडगड्डीर्पिबण्डं नैवेद्यं समर्पयामि। मध्ये मध्ये पानीयं समर्पयामि। अमृतपुत्रावसं समर्पयामि। कर्पूरं समर्पयामि। गणानां गणपतिगं नमामि। कविं कवीनां नक्षत्रं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतिं शीलसाधनं नमः। समर्पयामि। नीराजनं समर्पयामि। नीराजनानन्तरम् आस्मनीयं समर्पयामि। ओम 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 स्वाहा। ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ। ओम 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 स्व ओम मह ओम जन ओम तव ओम सत्यम ओम तत्सर्वण्यम भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ओम ज्योतिर्समृतमुरुस्र ओमोपात समस्त रुद्र क्षेत्रवासी परमेश्वर कीर्तन सुबह सोपदे मूर्ते आद्य ब्रह्मण नित्य प्रार्थे श्रीवेदे वराह कल्पे वैवस्वत मन्वन्तरे अष्टाविंशतितमे कलियुगे प्रथमे वादे जम्बूद्वीपे भारतवर्षे वर्धखण्डे मेरो दक्षिणे पार्श्वे सगाप्ते अस्मिन् वर्तमाने व्यावादिके प्रभवादिनां तस्य संवत्सराणां मध्ये तिलवनाम संवत्सरे दक्षिणायने शरदृतु वृश्चिक मासे शुक्लपक्षे नवमी तिथ्यां शुभतिथौ भानुवास युक्तायां उत्तर प्रोष्ठापदा नक्षत्र युक्तायां शुभ नक्षत्र शुभ योग शुभ कर्ण एवं गुण विशेषण विशिष्टायां अस्यां नवमी तिथ्यां शुभतिथौ मम जन्मापप जन्मपप्रति एतच्चनपर्यन्तं मध्ये सम्भावितानं सर्वेषां भावनं सत्य अवनुनाथम् अस्माहं सहकुर्मानं क्षेम सद्धर्य वीर्य विजय आयुरारोग्य ऐश्वर्याणाम् अभिवृद्ध्यर्थं समस्त मंगलार्थं समस्त दुर्दोष शान्त्यर्थं रमण महर्षि प्रसादेन ज्ञानवैराग्य सिद्ध्यर्थं रमण महर्षि पूजां करिष्ये। तदंगं कलश पूजां स करिष्ये। विघ्नेश्वरं यथास्थानं प्रतिष्ठापयामि। शोभनार्थे क्षेमाय पुनरागमनाय च। कलशस्य मुखे विष्णुकण्ठे रुद्र समाधिर्थ मूले तत्र स्थितो ब्रह्मा मातुकर्णे संवृता कुशौ तुषाग्रा सर्वे सप्तद्विवा वसुन्धरा दिग्वेदो यज्ञवेदो सामवेदोत्पदर्वण गंगे सतैर्न गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिन्धु कावेरी जलेस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु। अंगै सचैता सर्वे कलशाम्बो समाश्रिता आयान्तु देवपूजार्थं दुर्दशकारका। तंबूरा सागरोत्पन्नो विष्णु विष्णुकरे देवस्य पूजसे परिये पांचजन्य नमोस्तुते। देवो देवालय प्रोक्तो जीव देवस्नानन अज्ञान निर्मालयं सोयाम्बरे पूजयेत्। ओम सकल गुणात्म शक्तियुक्ताय योग विनात्मने नमः। आधार शक्तिये नमः। मूल प्रकृतिये नमः। आदिवराय नमः। आदिगुरुमाय नमः। अनंताय नमः। पृथ्व्यै नमः। आदित्यादि नवग्रह देवताभ्यो नमः। दश दिग्बालेभ्यो नमः। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरा गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ओम अस्यसि प्राणप्रतिष्ठामन्दस्य ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश्वरा ऋषिर्गिरिसामधर्वाणि दन्तांसि सकल जगत् सृष्टिसति सम्मार्गाणि प्राणशक्ति परादेवता आम बीजम हरिम शक्ति ओम किलगम प्राणप्रतिष्ठापने विनियोग आम दुष्टाभ्यां नमः हरिंदर्जनिभ्यां नमः ओम मध्यमाभ्यां नमः आम अनाभ्यां नमः हरिंदर्ष्टाभ्यां नमः ओम कर्णप्रतिष्ठाभ्यां नमः आम तीर्याय नमः हरिं सरसे स्वाहा ओम शिगाय वसन् आम कौसायम हरिं नेत्रदाय वसन् ओम अस्त्रदाय पट पुरुवसर्व दिग्बंध ज्ञानम दग्धांबोधिस्त बोधोदस्त तरुणसोडकराचे पासं गोदंडम विक्षुत्व मणिगुण पंचबाणात् विप्राण सुखवादंतरेण सिद्धापि नव सौरोट्या देवी बालार गौरना बहु सुकृपाण शक्ति परान ओम आम ह्रीं क्रों क्रों ह्रीं मां अम्यं रं लं वं सं सम्म हंस सोहं सोहं हंस अस्यामूर्तौ जीवतिष्ठु अस्यामूर्तौ सर्वेन्द्रियाणि वाङ्मनस्व सस्वत्र दिव्या प्राणवाक् पाणिपाद वायुगुस्तानि यातस्ति तस्ति सुगम सुगम दृष्टं स्वाहा ओम अस्यसि प्राणप्रतिष्ठामन्दस्य ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश्वरा ऋषिर्गिरिसामधर्वाणि दन्तांसि सकल जगत्सृष्टिसि सम्मार्गाणि प्राणशक्ति परादेवता आम बीजम हरिं शक्ति ओम कीलकम प्राणप्रतिष्ठापने विनियोग आम अंगुष्ठाभ्यां नमः हरिंदर्जनिभ्यां नमः ओम मध्यमाभ्यां नमः आम अनामिकाभ्यां नमः ओम कर्णपुष्टाभ्यां नमः आम कीर्त्याय नमः हरिं सरसे स्वाहा ओम शिगाय वसट् आम कौसायम हरिंद्रदाय वसट् ओम अस्त्रदाय पट पूर्वसर्व दिग्बंध असुनीदे पुनर्स्माक्ष सक्ष पुनः प्राणने नोइदे योगम जोगपस्य में सूर्य चंद्रमन मुदे मणयान शक्ति आवायुदो भव श्रद्धाविदो भव सन्निधो भव सन्निरिधो भव अवगुंडितो भव सुब्रतो भव सुब्रसन्नो भव सुभो भव वरदो भव प्रसिद्ध प्रसिद्ध स्वामी सर्वजगन्नाथ यावत् पूजावसानकम तावत् धूम प्रतिभावेन बिंबेस्मिन् सन्निधं कुरु ओम नमो भगवते श्री कुशेलाय नमो नमो भगवते श्री कुबेराय नमः नमो भगवते श्री कुशेलाय नमो नमो भगवते श्री कुबेराय नमः ओम नमो भगवते श्री कुशेलाय नमो नमो भगवते श्री कुबेराय नमः चतुर्नोति मंत्रजन पौरसी पत्रपः लक्ष्मी प्रदर्शिमानंगद प्रिय ईश्वरा और रिसाइट श्री रमणोष्टकम् सदनामावली श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः अबारदच्चि सुगुवारी राशोर्य शोर्य मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुणायुधं तं ब्रह्मं गभीरं सिद्धाविरणं निर्दि चिन्तयामि ओम महोसेन जाताय नमः ओम श्री रमणाय नमः ओम गुरवे नमः ओम अखंड संविदाकराय नमः ओम महुजसे नमः ओम कारणोद्भवाय नमः ओम जगत्पितावताराय नमः ओम श्री भूमिनाथास्तलोकिताय नमः ओम पराशर कुलोतंसाय नमः ओम सुंदरातर्वपलाय नमः ओम कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः ओम सयायाम्बा सयायवते नमः ओम शोणासुर मौलीन मानसाय नमः ओम स्वर्णस्तगाय नमः ओम श्रीमद्वात्सान्तमास्त्रे विद्योदयाय नमः ओम महाशक्तिनिवादेन प्रभुताय नमः ओम परमार्थविदे नमः ओम दिव्याय नमः ओम पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ओम इंदुमोलिना पितृपदे नमः ओम विराजित सोणतैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ओम तपोमयाय नमः ओम उदासीनाय नमः ओम महायोगिने नमः ओम महोत्साहाय नमः ओम कुशाग्रदिये नमः ओम शांत संकल्प संप्रभाय नमः ओम सुसुद्रुसे नमः ओम सवित्रे नमः ओम स्थिराय नमः ओम तपस्वील सर्वंगाय नमः ओम मुल्ला मूल विलोचनाय नमः ओम चंद्रिकासिदासी मंडितान मंडलाय नमः ओम सूदवाक्यां समासीनाय नमः ओम सूर्यलाक्ष्मी विप्रमाय नमः ओम वेद वेदांत तत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ओम चिन्मुत्रणे नमः ओम त्रिगुणाधिकाय नमः ओम विरूपाक्ष गुहावासाय नमः ओम विराजित सलाकृते नमः ओम उत्थितनयनाय नमः ओम पूर्णाय नमः ओम रसिदासनतांडवाय नमः ओम गंभीराय नमः ओम परमाचार्याय नमः ओम सुब्रह्मण्याय नमः ओम अभयप्रदाय नमः ओम दक्षिणासीनिवाय नमः ओम धीराय नमः ओम दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ओम स्वराजे नमः, ओम महर्षिये नमः, ओम भगवते नमः, ओम ईत्याय नमः, ओम भूम विद्या विशारदाय नमः, ओम विमलाय नमः, ओम दीर्घदर्शने नमः, ओम आप्ताय नमः, ओम ऋजुमार्ग प्रदर्शकाय नमः, ओम समत्रुसे नमः, ओम सत्यत्रुसे नमः, ओम सत्याय नमः, ओम प्रसादाय नमः, ओम अमित विक्रमाय नमः, ओम सुकुमाराय नमः, ओम सदानंदाय नमः, ओम मृदुवासिने नमः, ओम दयार्णवाय नमः, ओम श्री सोणासुर इरुद्भूत स्कंदाश्रम निकेतनाय नमः, ओम सद्दर्शन उपदेष्टने नमः, ओम सद्भक्त वृंद परिपूजाय नमः, ओम गणेश मुनि प्रिय सेवितां प्रसरोर्वाय नमः, ओम गीतोपदेश सारादि ग्रंथ संचिन्न संशयाय नमः, ओम वर्णाश्रम मदादीदाय नमः, ओम रसज्ञाय नमः, ओम सौम्याय नमः, ओम आत्मवदे नमः, ओम सर्वावनि मदस्थाना महाराध्याय नमः, ओम सर्वसद्गुणे नमः, ओम आत्मा रामाय नमः, ओम महाभागाय नमः, ओम मातृमुक्ति विदायकाय नमः, ओम विरदाय नमः, ओम विरुदाय नमः, ओम विप्राय नमः, ओम मुनिन्द्राय नमः, ओम बाबा गोजमलाय नमः, ओम दर्शनाथ सम्मानने नमः, ओम मौनेन स्वात्म बोधकाय नमः, ओम ऋचांति कर्ता नित्याय नमः, ओम प्रणाद मंत्र मोचकाय नमः, ओम अंतस्पीर चंडांसुवे नमः, ओम संसारम तारकाय नमः, ओम सोणादि श्री दिष्टरे नमः, ओम आत्मविद्या प्रकाशकाय नमः, ओम अविच्युत निज प्रज्ञाय नमः, ओम नैसर्गिक महातमसे नमः, ओम कमंडलधराय नमः, ओम सुब्रगविनवसनाय नमः, ओम गुहाय नमः, ओम दंडवाणीय नमः, ओम कृपापूर्णाय नमः, ओम पवरोग पिशक्पराय नमः, ओम स्कंदाय नमः, ओम देवतमाय नमः, ओम अमर्त्याय नमः, ओम सेनानिये नमः, ओम पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री कात्याय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री मुरुगाय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री वल्ली देवाय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री सुब्रमण्याय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री स्वामिनारायण नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री दक्षिणामूर्ति नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री नटराजने नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री भैरवाय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री नंदी महेश्वराय नमः, ओम नमो भगवते श्री शिव पार्वतीये नमः, ओम नमः शिवाय नमः, ओम नमः शिवाय नमः, ओम नमः शिवाय नमः, ओम नमः शिवाय नमः, ओम शिवाय नमः, ओम शिवाय नमः, ओम शिवाय नमः, ओम शिवाय नमः। उपदेश सार कर्तुराज्ञया प्रापदे फलम कर्म गिम्बरम कर्म जड़म प्रहति महतदो पदन कारणम फलम शाश्वतम गद निरोधकम ईश्वरार्पितम निचयाकृतम सिद्ध शोधकम मुक्ति साधकम कायवाङ्मन कार्यमुद्गमं भूजनं जग चिन्तनं क्रमा जगतैषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृ देवभूजनम् उद्गमस्तवा तुज्जमङ्गद सिद्धजं जव ज्ञानमुत्तमम् आजधारया श्रोदसासमं सरलचिन्तनं विरलरबरं वेदभावना सौम्यमित्यसौ भावनाविदा भावनीमदा भावशून्यस भावसुस्तुति भावना बलात् भक्तिरुद्गमा इरुस्तरे मन स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्ति योग बोधाच निश्चितम वायुरोदना लीयते मन जालभक्षिव रोध साधनम सिद्धवायव सित्क्रियायुधा सागयोर्द्वै शक्तिमूलका लय विनाशने उभयरोदने लयकदम्बुन भवति नो मृदं प्राणवन्दना दीनमानसं एकचिन्तना नासमेत्यद नष्टमानसो पृष्ठयोगिन कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्तिदं यद दृश्यवारिदं सिद्धमात्मन सिद्वदर्शनं तत्वदर्शनं मानसं दुहिं मार्गणे हृदे नैव मानसं मार्गार्जवा वृद्धयस्त्वहं वृद्धिमाश्रिता वृद्धयो मनो विद्यहं मन अहमयं कुतो भवति चिरवद ऐपदत्यहं निजविसारणम् अहमिनाशवा यमहं दया स्फुरधीरस्वयं परमपूर्णस इदमहं वदा अभिज्ञमन्वहम् अहमिलीनके अप्यल्लसत्कया विक्रयेन्द्रिय प्राणदीधम नामसे कसत् दज्जडं ससत् सत्त्ववासिका चित्त्वभेदरा सद्दयायिचि सिद्धयायहम् ईसजीवयो वेशदीपिता सस्वभावतो वस्तु केवलं वेश आनद स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईसदर्शनं स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वया आत्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीनची ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरं किं स्वरूपमि आत्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णसित्सुखं बन्धमुक्त्यदि तम्बरं सुखं विन्दति वस्तुदैविक अहमवेदकं निजविभानकं महति तं तपो रमणवाक्यं महति तं तपो रमणवाक्यं महति तं तपो रमणवाक्यम्। ओम नमो भगवती श्री अरुणाचल रत्नाय। ओम नमो भगवती श्री अरुणाचल रत्नाय। ओम नमो भगवती श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः।
Just give me 1 minute, Narayanji. There is some connectivity challenge.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Namo Ramana. A very warm welcome to all the devotees for the Sunday Satsang, Mr. Michael James. Uh, even though he needs no introduction at all, a brief background of Mr. James. He had started his spiritual journey at Tiruvannamalai during his visit to India in 1976, over 45 years ago. And he stayed there for over 20 years and had a long friendship and association with Sri Sadhu Om and assisted him in translating Guru Vachaka Kovai, Nanyar, Ulladu Narpadu, and other works of Bhagavan into English. Mr. James is now based in London, where he regularly discusses Bhagavan's teachings with fellow devotees via email and Zoom, focusing primarily on explaining his original Tamil writings and writes articles for his blog. He has been very kindly addressing devotees of Ramana Kendra Delhi for over an year now, every second Sunday of the month. May I now please request Mr. James to take over and address the devotees. Mr. James?
Sorry, I was beginning to talk, forgetting I was muted.
No worries.
Namaskaram. As in the last few months, I'm going to be answering a series of questions today. The first two questions are asked by Sushil Motwani. The first question he asked is, can Drisya Vivek be helpful in self-inquiry and abiding in the self? Are there any other helpful techniques to hold on to the I better and longer? Drisya Viveka means distinguishing the seer from the seen, or the perceiver from the perceived, the subject from the object. This is implicit in self-investigation. In Atmavachara, what we are trying to do is to turn our attention away, well, primarily we're trying to turn our attention back towards ourselves and thereby away from everything else. So we are trying to not to attend to any object, to anything perceived, but to the perceiver. To whom do all these things appear? So this is Drisya Viveka in practice. Generally, Drisya Viveka, that is, there's a well-known text, which is generally believed to be a text written by Shankara. Nowadays, scholars dispute that, but scholars will dispute so many things. Let's not worry about that. It's generally taken to be a text by Adi Shankara called Drisya Viveka. This, in this text, it goes through a step-by-step process of intellectual analysis, conceptual analysis. It says, for example, that the objects, the visible objects, are drisya, they are seen. What sees them is the eye. But the eye is not actually, there is something that sees through the eye. So the eye then becomes the drisya, and what is the seer becomes the mind. But even the mind, in the sense of all thoughts other than the first thought I, are all things seen by us. So they are seen by the witness, by the Sakshi Chaitanya or Atman. That is how it's described there. That is just such intellectual, such conceptual analysis is just to help to clarify what is meant by Drisya Viveka. But for practical purposes, I am the seer, everything else is seen by me. I am the perceiver, everything else is seen by me. So we are trying to turn our attention away from whatever is perceived back towards ourselves, the perceiver. That is Drisya Viveka in practice. So Drisya Viveka in practice is what is otherwise called Atmavachara. Bhagavan gave a very simple and very clear and powerful pointer in this direction. He said, no matter what may appear, to whom does it appear? It appears to me. So Bhagavan isn't asking us to question, to whom does this appear? Some people think they wait for the next thought to arise, to whom does this thought appear? That is not what is meant. Well, when Bhagavan often expressed his pointers in the form of questions. It's not the question that's important, it is what that is pointing at. So whatever appears, to whom does it appear? It appears only to me. So Bhagavan doesn't say ask to whom. He says investigate to whom. Investigating to whom does all this appear means turning our attention back towards ourselves, the one to whom all these things appear. In other words, turning our attention away from other things and back towards ourselves. This is Drisya Viveka in practice. We are distinguishing ourselves as the subject, the perceiver, from all objects which are things perceived by us. In order to know what we actually are, we need to attend only to ourselves, not to anything else. So this is a powerful, this pointer that Bhagavan gave in the form of a question, to whom. This is a very powerful pointer. Sometimes it's not wrong to ask the question, but asking the question is not self-investigation. Asking the question is useful to the extent to which it helps us to turn our attention back towards ourselves, that it reminds us, oh, my attention has gone out to whatever. If something appears, that means my attention has gone towards it. Nothing can appear unless I attend to it. So if something appears, oh, to whom did it appear? To me. It reminds us to bring our attention back to ourselves. But the actual, what Bhagavan means by investigating to whom means simply turning our attention back to ourselves, the one to whom all other things appear. So as I say, this is Drisya Viveka in practice. Bhagavan also refers to this or he describes it in another way in verse 16 of Upadesha Saram. He begins verse 16 of Upadesha Saram by saying Drisya Varitam. Varitam literally means warded off, or it means what Drisya Varitam means is turning our attention away from everything Drisya. So what do we have to turn our attention towards? Towards ourselves. So he goes on to describe that as Chittam Atmanaha Chitva Darshanam. That means, Chittam means, in this context, means the mind. Atmanaha means its own. Chitva, consciousness. Darshanam means seeing. So the mind seeing its own consciousness or awareness, Tattva Darshanam, that is Tattva Darshanam, that is seeing what is real, the ultimate reality. Here Bhagavan in this verse 16, Bhagavan very clearly describes the practice of self-investigation, or we can equally well say describes the practice of Drisya Viveka. That is, Viveka is often translated as discriminating. That is one way of translating it, but another way of translating it is distinguishing. So distinguishing the seer from the seen means we have to turn our attention away from what is seen back towards the seer. What is the seer? The seer is ego. That which is aware of all things. The subject is ego. Ego is a mixed and conflated awareness. Ego consists of two elements. The essential element of ego is that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. But when we rise as ego, we don't experience that. We're not aware of ourselves as just I am. We're aware of ourselves as I am such and such a person. I am Michael, or I am whoever. It doesn't matter. The name is just a name given to a person, a body. So we now experience ourselves as if we were a body. So this is the fundamental awareness I am, which is pure awareness, mixed and conflated with adjuncts in the form of these five sheaths that we take to be ourselves. These five sheaths make up the person we seem to be. The five sheaths are the physical body, the life that animates this body, and the mind, intellect, and will that function within this body. These are the five sheaths. These collectively we experience as ourselves. So now though we are always aware I am, we are not experiencing I am in its pure condition. We're experiencing mixed and conflated with adjuncts. So this adjunct conflated awareness, I am so-and-so, this is ego. That, in other words, that which is aware of itself as I am this body, that is ego. So we now need to investigate, and this is the seer, the perceiver, that the subject. But when we investigate ourselves, we are not investigating the adjunct portion. We are investigating, as Bhagavan says in one place in, it's been recorded in Maharshi's Gospel, Bhagavan says, in your investigation into the source of the ahamvriti, ahamvriti simply means I thought, it's another name for ego, you take the essential chit aspect of ego. The essential chit aspect of ego, chit means awareness, so the essential chit aspect of ego is that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. So what we are investigating is not the adjuncts, but only the I am portion of ego. So Bhagavan, in this verse 16, Bhagavan makes this very clear by saying, Drisya Varitam, that is setting aside everything seen, the mind seeing its own chitva, its own awareness, that is seeing the reality. Because what is the reality? What is tattva? As Bhagavan says in Arunachaksharam, like verse 43, Tane Tane Tattvam. Tane Tane, Tan means oneself. Tane means oneself alone. That is, the A is intensified, it emphasizes it. So Tane Tane Tattvam, we can take two meanings from this. One meaning is Tane Tane is simply a repetition for emphasis. So oneself alone is tattva. So tattva means what is real. Tattva literally means thatness or itness, but it implies what is real, what actually exists. So Bhagavan, so if we take the first interpretation, Tane Tane, Bhagavan is emphasizing oneself alone is the reality. He's repeating oneself alone for emphasis. That's one way of interpreting it. We can also take it to be Tane Tan. Oneself alone is oneself. In other words, I am I. Bhagavan often said, aham aham, nan nan, I am I. So that's the implication of Tane Tan. Oneself alone is oneself. That is the reality. What Bhagavan means by I am I, or oneself alone is oneself, it is that clear awareness of ourselves as we actually are. What we actually are is nothing other than this fundamental awareness I am. So I am not this or that. I'm not this body. I'm not anything that can be pointed out as this or that. I am I alone. I am that which is always shining in my heart as I. So that is what Bhagavan implies by Tane Tane. So that clear awareness of ourselves as we actually are, that is tattva. So in this verse 16, he says, seeing our own awareness, that means our own awareness in this context means that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. That alone is real awareness. And seeing that is seeing the reality, because that fundamental awareness I am, that alone is the reality. Tane Tane Tattvam. So our aim is to turn our attention away from everything that is perceived back towards ourself, the perceiver. But when we're attending to a perceiver, it's only the essential chit aspect of the perceiver. That is, the perceiver is ego, which is chit jada granti. But jada portion is the adjuncts. We're not interested in the adjuncts. The adjuncts is alien to us. It's anya. That is this body, this prana, the mind, the intellect, the will. Mind here means all the thoughts and perceptions and so on, all the objective aspects of the mind. These are all anya. They're all objects. They're all drisya, things seen, things other than ourselves. Our aim is to turn our attention away from everything perceived back towards the essential chit aspect of the perceiver. So that is what Bhagavan described very beautifully in this verse 16 of Upadesha Saram. For those of you who know Tamil, how he expresses it also very beautifully in Tamil. He says, Veli videyangale vittu, manum tan oli uru ordale undi para, unme unichiam undi para. What that means is, Veli videyangale vittu means leaving all external vishayas. external Vishayas means all Vishayas, because all Vishayas are external in the sense that they're Anya, they're something other than us. So Vishayas means Drisya, everything that is perceived, all objects. So leaving them, in other words, ceasing to be aware of them, manam tan oli uru ordale, the mind knowing its own form of light. Its own form of light is what he describes in the Sanskrit version as Chitva, that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. That is the light that illumines the mind. So the mind knowing its own form of light, that is Unmay Unachi. Unmay Unachi we can interpret in two ways. One way is that is real awareness. That alone is real awareness. We can also take it as awareness of reality. Both meanings are equally correct, and only awareness of reality is real awareness. Knowing all this appearance, this is not real awareness, this is just chittabhasa, it's just a semblance of awareness, it's not for real awareness. For real awareness is only that awareness that is aware of, is pure awareness, that awareness that is aware of nothing other than itself. That is the awareness that is always shining in us as I am. So our aim in Atmavichara is to turn our attention away from everything else back towards this fundamental awareness I am. So this is Drisya Viveka in practice. So yes, even to say is Drisya Viveka helpful in self-inquiry, it is implicit in self-inquiry. That is, without distinguishing ourself, the seer, from everything that is seen, we cannot investigate ourselves. So long as we still take ourselves to be this body, which is Drisya, or this prana, which is Drisya, or this mind, which is Drisya, or this intellect, which is Drisya, or this, or the will, or the vasana, they're also Drisya. So long as we take ourselves to be any of these things, we are attending to something other than ourselves. We need to turn our attention away from all that is Drisya, back towards ourselves. Who am I? The one to whom all these things appear. To who am I? The one who is aware of all these things. So this is Drisya Viveka in practice. So that's a very nice question, Sushil. Thank you very much for this question. The next question you asked is, are there any other helpful techniques to hold on to the I better and longer? I wouldn't even say that Drisya Viveka is a technique. That is, Drisya Viveka means we need to distinguish ourselves from everything else. We distinguish ourselves from everything else by turning our attention back to ourselves and ignoring everything else. So this is just another way of describing the same practice of self-investigation. Bhagavan gave us many pointers. He described this practice in many different ways, but however he described it, what he's describing is the same basic technique, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't even call it technique because that sounds too technical. It's so simple. If you want to see something, in the midday, the sun is shining high up in the sky. And if you're in Delhi, the sun will be right above your head. So now it's winter, of course, the sun will not be quite above your head, but in the summer, sun is right above your head. If you want to see the sun, what do you have to do? You have to turn and look at it. So simple. So if we want to see what we actually are, we need to turn and look at ourselves. If you turn and look at the midday sun, you're going to be blinded. If you turn and look at yourself and see what you actually are, ego will be destroyed. In other words, we will cease to be aware of anything else because all other things appear only in the view of ego. So just like we will be blinded if we see the midday sun, if we look at the midday sun carefully, it will blind us. If we look at ourselves carefully enough, it will blind us. That means it will destroy this ego, the seer of all other things, will be destroyed. So the turning to look at something, if you want to call that a technique, okay, we can call it a technique, but it's not really a technique. It's just it's so simple. If you want to see something, you have to turn and look at it. So if you want to see what we actually are, we need to turn and look at ourselves. However, because this is a very deep and subtle practice, Bhagavan described it in many ways. He gave us many different pointers. For example, the question I was referring to earlier, to whom do all these things appear? Obviously, Bhagavan wasn't asking us to repeat the question. whatever appears, to whom did it appear? It appears to me. So whatever appears should remind us of ourselves, the one to whom it's appearing. So we should use the drishya to remind ourselves of the drik. There cannot be any drishya without a drik. There cannot be anything perceived without a perceiver. So who am I, this perceiver? Our aim is to turn our attention away from everything else, back towards ourselves, the seer, the perceiver, the subject. And in the subject, the essential chit aspect of the subject, as Bhagavan said. So the other clues that Bhagavan gave us, for example, he sometimes described this practice as investigating ego. Ego means the seer, the perceiver, but ego is not what we actually are. But what is the relationship between ego and what we actually are? What we actually are is the fundamental awareness I am. Ego is that same fundamental awareness mixed and conflated with adjuncts. So ego is nothing other than what we actually are, but it seems to be something other because of the mixture of adjuncts. So looking at investigating ego, that is attending closely to ego, is like looking very carefully at the snake. If you look at the snake carefully enough, what do you see? Oh, it's just a rope. It was never a snake. It's only a rope. Likewise, if we look at the ego carefully enough, we will see that it is nothing but that pure awareness I am. Because when we're looking at ego, we're only looking at that I am element of ego, the essential chit aspect of ego, as Bhagavan said. So investigating ego is one way. That's why Bhagavan said, for example, in verse 25 of Upadesha of Uludunaptu, if one Tadinal otam piticum, if sought, it takes flight. That if we try to find this ego, we don't find any such thing. We seem to be ego only when we're looking outwards. If we look back within to see, who am I, this ego? Ego will, otam piticum means it takes flight, it runs away. That's just a metaphorical way of saying it will subside and dissolve back into its source. So to the extent to which we attend to other things, we seem to be ego. To the extent to which we attend to ourselves, ego subsides and dissolves back into its source. So attending to ego is actually attending to our source, because, well, as I say, when you look at the snake very carefully, the snake dissolves and the source of the snake is revealed. What is the source of the snake? It's only the rope. What the snake actually is nothing but a rope. So attending to ego is one way Bhagavan described it. Another way he said, investigate the place from which ego rises. Here he uses the word place in a metaphorical sense to mean the source, that from which ego rises. From what does ego rise? In sleep, there is no ego. But when we wake up or begin to dream, ego rises. So from what does ego rise? It rises from that which alone exists in sleep. What exists in sleep, we alone do. So ego rises only from ourselves. That is from that fundamental awareness I am. So investigating the source from which ego arises is attending to that fundamental I am. So if we consider all these different ways in which Bhagavan and sometimes he's described it as investigating what am I. That's turning our attention. All these are just different ways of describing this simple practice of turning our attention away from everything else back towards ourselves. And once we turn our attention back towards ourselves, we then try to hold on to that self-attentiveness. It is such a simple practice. But because it's subtle, Bhagavan described it in a variety of different ways. But however he described it is just a pointer. All these pointers are pointing at the same thing, I. So our aim is to attend to I and to I alone. So I hope this adequately answers your question, Sushil. As I say, these are not different techniques. They're just different ways of describing or pointing at or indicating the same simple practice of being self-attentive, trying to attend to ourselves more and more keenly. That is all it is. As Bhagavan says in the 16th paragraph of Nana, he defines what is Atmavichara. Sada kalamum manate atmavil vaitirupikutan atmavicharam entrupaya. That means the name Atmavichara, or in other words, the term Atmavichara refers only to always keeping one's mind fixed on oneself. Keeping the mind fixed on oneself means attending to oneself. If you keep your mind fixed on something, if you're watching a very interesting film or reading a very interesting book, your mind is fixed on that. It's your mind fixed on it means your whole attention is absorbed in that because it's so interesting. This is also a vital clue. What will make this people often say, oh, this is very, very difficult. Attending to myself, I find it very difficult. It is not difficult. It's the simplest, as Bhagavan said, it's the simplest of all things. Why it seems to be difficult? Because we're more interested in thinking about other things than in knowing ourselves. So interest is the key. Interest is the love. We must have great interest, great passionate love to know who am I. The more we are wholly the more our whole interest in life is centered around this fundamental question, who am I? The more we have a passionate interest to know who am I, the more we truly love to know who am I, the easier this will be. That is, normally our mind goes towards, our attention goes towards whatever interests us. So if we're interested in politics, we'll always be thinking about politics. If we're interested in the stock market, we'll always be thinking about the stock market. If we're interested in cricket, we'll always be thinking about cricket. If we're interested in knowing who am I, we'll always be thinking about I. That we'll always be attending to I. So it's having a passionate interest, a love. This love to know ourselves is what is called Swatma Bhakti, love for our own real nature, also called Satvasana, the inclination to attend only to our being, not to anything that's happening, but only to being, to that fundamental being I am. So these are all different pointers that Bhagavan gave to this simple practice of self-investigation. The next question Sushil Motwani asked is, can you tell us a little about Sadhu Om and his advice to devotees? Sadhu Om was the very embodiment of wholehearted love for and surrender to Bhagavan. His whole life was a life dedicated to Bhagavan. He has written hundreds and hundreds of songs, prayers to Bhagavan, praise of Bhagavan, expressing Bhagavan's teachings in so many beautiful ways in the form of songs. He also, when people used to come to him and ask him about Bhagavan's teachings, he used to give so much clarification about, he had no teachings of his own. He was simply pointing out what Bhagavan has said and pointing out what we have to understand from what Bhagavan said, what we have to infer, because Bhagavan's words, Bhagavan has written relatively little. He's written Nana, who am I? He's written various poems like Upadesha Undiya, Upadesha Saram, Uladu Napadu, Ekama Panchakam, Apalapatu, Anma Vigde, these songs, and also some of the verses of Upadesha, of Uladu Napadu Anabandam and of Upadesha Tanipaka. They're also original verses of Bhagavan. So the number of original verses he's written is just, well, of these Upadesha verses, it's little over 100 verses, and or barely even 100 verses, I think. And of the others are the devotional verses, the verses of Aranaksha Stuti Panchakam, so 108 verses of Aksharamala. So in all, Bhagavan wrote about 200 original verses. So all his essential teachings are contained within these 200 verses. So we can really, and of course, Nana is of course very important. That was written in prose, but it was also written by Bhagavan himself. Though it was originally answers that he had given to Sri Prakasham Pillai, Bhagavan himself rewrote it in the form of an essay. and a few other pieces of prose writing, like his introduction to Viveka Chudamani, his introduction to Dritya Viveka. So Bhagavan's, and he translated various things, some of the verses of Uludunapjanabandam and about Upadesha Tanipakal, and also the verses in Anuvada Numalai. So Bhagavan has translated something, but his original writings is just 200 verses and Nana and a few other small pieces of writing. So Bhagavan has written very little, but within the scope of the little that Bhagavan has written, he has compacted all his teachings. So when we read his work, his original writings, we not only need to understand the meaning of what he says, we also need to understand the implication. So Sadhu Om was always drawing our attention to what Bhagavan had said in his original writings and what is the implications of these things. And Guru Vachika Kavai is also a very important work that was recorded by Murugana. He recorded what Bhagavan had said. So Guru Vachika Kavai in a way is like an expansion of the 200 verses or 200 odd verses that Bhagavan himself wrote. So if we understand the Bhagavan's own original writings with the help of Guru Vachika Kavai, all we need to understand is contained there. So Sadhu Om was always pointing out what Bhagavan had said in Uladunapta, in Upadeshandiya, in Arunachal Stuti Panchakam. He was constantly pointing out this and constantly reminding us of what Bhagavan had taught. So Sadhu Om wasn't teaching anything of his own. He was simply reminding us of what Bhagavan had taught us and pointing out what we have to infer from that, what the implication of what Bhagavan has said is. So he was a past master in elucidating and making it clear to us what Bhagavan had already said clearly, but often we fail to understand. So we can't say elucidating Bhagavan's teachings because Bhagavan's teachings are so lucid anyway, but still for our dull minds, he was helping us to understand the clarity and simplicity of Bhagavan's teachings. And most importantly, what are Bhagavan's teachings all about? About practice. So Sadhu Om was always emphasizing this simple practice of being self-attentive. Being self-attentive is itself both self-investigation and self-surrender. And in his life, he exemplified this wholehearted devotion to Bhagavan and complete surrender to Bhagavan. So if there's anything that is apart from that is two things I would say I learned. I mean, I learned so much from Sadhu Om. He clarified so many things, but two things I would draw out of that is from the 8.5 years I was very fortunate to be in his close association until at a very young age, he just in his early 60s, he very suddenly and unexpectedly passed away. But I was fortunate to be with him for 8 years. What I learned from that is firstly, the importance of Bhagavan's own original writings and of understanding what Bhagavan is, what the meaning of Bhagavan's writings and the implications. So their importance he attached to Bhagavan's original writings, that was one very great lesson I learned from Sadhu Om. And of course, understanding what the implications of these were, he helped me to a very great extent. But what he has taught, what I learned from Sadhu Om, it's like Bhagavan put me in the company of Sadhu Om for 8.5 years. Bhagavan was thereby sowing a seed. That seed has been growing ever since. So my understanding of Bhagavan's teachings has been developing since that time, has been growing deeper and clearer as the years go by. And this is another thing, Sadhu Om always emphasized the practice. If we really want to understand Bhagavan's teachings, we need to put them into practice. It's only to the extent to which we put them into practice that we will understand them. So that's also another very important thing I learned from Sadhu Om. And most important of all, what Sadhu Om exemplified was simple, wholehearted devotion to Bhagavan, one-pointed devotion to Bhagavan, ekagra bhakti. Bhagavan alone is our Guru. Bhagavan alone is our God. That is that focus. Of course, there are many. Guru has appeared over the ages in many different forms. Guru is one, but Guru has appeared in so many forms as Buddha, as Mahavira, as Gaudapada, as Adi Shankara, as Jesus, as so many different names and forms God may appear in. But though God has appeared in many different names and forms and given teachings appropriate to the people who are around him, in our day and age, that same one Guru has appeared in the form of Bhagavan Ramana. And he has given the whole essence of all. If you churn the essence of all religions is contained within Vedanta, the essence of all the Vedas and all the scriptures of all the different religions, the essence of that is contained in Vedanta. And the essence of Vedanta is Advaita. And the essence of Advaita, the Advaita in its purest, most refined form, is Bhagavan's teaching. So Bhagavan has given us the essence of the essence of the essence of everything. So it is, we are tremendously blessed to have Bhagavan as our Guru. So Sadhu Om taught the importance of having that one-pointed devotion to Bhagavan. And also he made it clear what Bhagavan has revealed to us about the nature of Guru. That is, generally, before Bhagavan, there have been so many sampradayas, so many lineages of Gurus. That is, after Shankara established, generally it is said 4, but it's also said 5, because Kanchipuram also is considered to be a Shankara Mat. So let's say 5. He established 5 mats, including Kanchipuram. And in each of those mats, he appointed a successor, or that is what tradition tells us. And each successor, so each head of a Shankara Mat appoints a successor. So there's a lineage, there's a sampradaya of gurus. So like that in so many, in the different Vaishnava traditions, they have their different lineages, and in the different Shaiva traditions, they have their own lineages. So generally, the idea of Guru is there, and then he appoints a successor. So there always has to be a living Guru. That is the old idea about Guru. What Bhagavan taught us about Guru is something altogether more subtle and refined. Bhagavan taught us Guru is that which is always shining in your heart as I. Guru is not a person. However, because our attention is going outwards, it's necessary for Guru to appear outwardly in human name and form in order to tell us to turn within. So the function of the outward form of Guru, in our case, Bhagavan Ramana, is to tell us to turn within. Bhagavan has fulfilled that function, and he has said, now that is what the external Guru is telling you, is to find the internal Guru who's always shining in your own heart, who is your own self. That is, God, Guru, and self are one and the same. Bhagavan often emphasized this. So Bhagavan was directing us to search within and contact the real Guru, the real Ramana, the true Ramana Swarupa, the true Guru Swarupa, which is ever shining in our heart as I. To illustrate this, there's a nice, I mean, there's so many stories to illustrate this, but this is one particularly nice story. There was a devotee of Bhagavan called Janaki Mata. She was from Tanjore. She often used to visit Bhagavan, and she also had a following of her own, so her own followers would also come with her. But she was very, very devoted to Bhagavan. Once, when she was visiting, she happened to see Bhagavan returning from a Gosala. And he was accompanied only two attendants were just following him. So she thought, oh, this Bhagavan alone, unaccompanied, or more or less unaccompanied, this is a very nice opportunity, she thought to herself. So she approached Bhagavan, she stood in front of him, prostrated, and put her forehead on his feet and held his ankles. And Bhagavan looked down at her with a smile and said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm holding the feet of my guru. And Bhagavan said, these are not the feet of your guru. This body is not your guru. This body is perishable. Guru is that which is always shining in your heart as I am. That is the feet of a guru. What is always shining in your heart as I am, that is guru, and that is guru's feet. Hold on to those feet. They alone will save you. If you take this body to be guru, this body is going to die one day. Like all bodies, it's perishable. You will be disappointed. So Bhagavan was always emphasizing, but he is that which is shining in our heart as I. He explained this most clearly when Amritanath Yatendra wrote a verse asking him whether he's Subramanya or this god or that god. Bhagavan simply replied, Ariyati tara jivara dahavari jagohel, Arivairami paramatuman arunachala ramanan. That is, Arunachala Ramana is that Paramatma which is always shining, always existing blissfully in the heart as awareness, that always existing as awareness in the cave of the heart lotus of all different jivas, beginning with Hari. So from the highest god to the lowest ant or insect, Arunachala Ramana is shining in the heart as I am. So he's pointing, in that verse, he's pointing out to us that the real guru is that which is shining in our heart as I. That real guru, which is called Arunachala Ramana, that is that which appears outwardly in the hill form as Arunachala and in the human form as Ramana. That Arunachala Ramana is what is always shining in our heart as I. So what should we do? Parival ulam uruha, with heart melting with love. Paranandidu guheyandu, reaching the cave where that supreme absolute dwells. In other words, turning our attention within and with heart melting love, merging back into our source, the cave in which that supreme absolute dwells. Arivam viritirava. The eye of awareness will be open. That is, we'll be aware of ourselves as we actually are. Nijamarivai, you will know your own nature. You'll know what you actually are. Adu veliyam, it will reveal itself. So this is Bhagavan, the function of the external form of guru is to turn us within. But so long as our mind is going outwards, we should have one pointed devotion. Bhagavan alone is our guru. People often used to come to Sadhuam and say, just like people used to come to Murugan also, they would say to them, will you be my guru? And both Murugara and Sadhuam, their response was exactly the same. Bhagavan alone is guru. You don't need any other guru. Bhagavan, if Bhagavan had wanted to appoint a successor, he could have appointed a successor. But of course, Bhagavan won't appoint a successor because the whole point of Bhagavan's teachings is that guru is that which is shining in our heart as I. So no successor of Bhagavan is necessary. Sometimes people used to ask Sadhuam, but isn't a living guru necessary? Everyone says a living guru is necessary. Sadhuam said, yes, living guru is absolutely necessary. But if by living guru you mean a living body, that living guru will one day become a dead guru. What is the use of that guru? The living guru we need is the guru who is eternally living. That eternally living guru is Bhagavan Ramana, who is always living in our heart, always shining in our heart, without beginning and without end, Anadi and Anta, unlimited. He is always shining in our heart as I. So he is the ever-living guru. So we do need a living guru, but not just a living guru who one day become a dead guru, not a living body, because guru is not the body. Guru is that which is shining in our heart as I. So Bhagavan gave us a very refined understanding of what is Guru. And both Murugan and Sadhuam very much emphasize this. Bhagavan alone, if you want the outward form of Guru, Bhagavan, but the real form of Guru, the real Ramana Swarupa, is Atma Swarupa, that which is always shining in our heart as I. And if we want an outward form of Guru, but there was no need for Bhagavan to appoint a successor, because he had already shown us who his Guru was. His Guru is Arunachala, who is always shining there in Tiruvannamalai. And we don't even have to go to Tiruvannamalai. Smaranat Arunachalam, by mere remembrance of Arunachala, mukti is assured. So if we want an outward form of Guru, we've got the pictures of Bhagavan. We've got Bhagavan's holy Sanadi in Ramanashram. We've got Bhagavan in the form of Arunachala. So he's always available in name and form when our attention is turned outwards. But he's always reminding us that his real form, his real Swarupa, is that which is shining in our heart as I. So this was something that Sadhuam emphasized so much. But we don't need any Guru other than Bhagavan, and any external form of a Guru. Arunachala Ramana alone is our Guru. That is, Bhagavan appeared in two forms, a form of the hill and in human form. That is our external Guru. But he appeared in order to tell us, Tirumbiaham, turning within, dinam, Tane dinamaha kankan, daily see yourself within your eye. That is what Arunachala taught to Bhagavan through silence, and what Bhagavan taught to us through words. In that is verse 44 of Aksharamai. Tirumbiaham dane dinam hakankan teriyamandranayan Arunachala. Turning within daily, see yourself with the inner eye. It will be known. Thus did you teach me, my Arunachala. So that's what Arunachala taught Bhagavan through silence. That's what Bhagavan taught us through words. So Bhagavan and Arunachala are one and the same. So this was very much emphasized by Sadhuam. Nowadays, we see so many people who claim to be gurus, who claim to be disciple, followers of Bhagavan and claim to be guru. They say, I'm in the lineage of Ramana. That is, my guru was Punja, and Punja's guru was Bhagavan, so I'm in the lineage. Anyone who, like Punja and such people who claim to be guru, are not true devotees of Bhagavan. A true devotee of Bhagavan will never accept the role of guru. Because why is any guru necessary? Bhagavan alone is our guru. We don't need any other guru. So the true devotees of Bhagavan will be like Murugana, Natanananda, Sadhuam, who will never let anyone take them as guru, who say, guru is only Bhagavan. We don't need any guru other than Bhagavan. So this is something very, very important that I learned from Sadhuam. And also, I came to Tiruvannamalai 3 years after Murugana had left his body, so I never had good fortune of meeting Murugana, but I know from Sadhuam that Murugana was always very, very insistent. Murugana never allowed anyone to take him as guru. And Natanananda, I had good fortune of having association with Natanananda also. He was exactly the same. Bhagavan alone is guru. The first thing he told me is that you are extremely fortunate that India is a vast ocean of spirituality, but there are so many sharks in this ocean, so many false gurus, but you have come to the real Guru Bhagavan. Take Bhagavan alone as your guru. And you are very fortunate, he told me, to have come to Sadhuam, because Sadhuam will keep you on the right track, will always be pointing you only to the true meaning of Bhagavan's teachings and to a true spirit of following and living Bhagavan's teachings. So Natanananda said that to me the first day I met him, and that proved very, very true in my life. So we don't need any guru other than Bhagavan. He alone is our guru. So as I say, the three most important things I learned from Sadhuam, if I want to summarize it, firstly, the importance of putting Bhagavan's teachings into practice. Bhagavan's teachings are all about practice. Secondly, the importance of Bhagavan's own original writings. That to truly understand Bhagavan's teachings, we need to understand his original writings. Because though so much has been recorded in other books like talks and day by day and everything, these aren't all. Bhagavan spoke in Tamil. These books were recorded in English. And these books were not the exact words Bhagavan said. What those people who recorded those books, what they understood and what they remembered, they wrote down. In Bhagavan had spoken in Tamil, they wrote it in English. So these are not the pure teacher. I mean, they're not in, we cannot rely on these books to be the exact words of Bhagavan. Moreover, Bhagavan often, because Bhagavan has to adapt his teachings according to those to whom he's talking. So when people come and ask him questions, he has to give answers that are appropriate to their level of understanding. So often Bhagavan had to dilute his teachings to suit the needs of individuals. So what Bhagavan answers in reply to to people's questions are not necessarily his pure teachings. His pure teachings are expressed by him in his own writings, in Arunachal Stuti Panchakam, in Upadesha Undya, Ulidu Napadu, Anma Vidya, and such works. That is where we can find the pure, the Bhagavan's teachings in their purest and most fundamental form. So all the fundamental teachings, principles of his teachings, we can learn from these works. So this I learned from Sadhu Om. And third, the importance of one-pointed devotion to Bhagavan, not looking for gurus here or there, or not thinking, oh, I must find satsang, I must go and sit in the presence of this jnani or that jnani. Who is a jnani? This is all unnecessary distractions. Bhagavan used to say, when people asked, is such and such a person a jnani? Bhagavan said, there's only one jnani, you are that. Know yourself and you'll know the jnani. You cannot. So long as you're seeing people, you're seeing so many people, even if you say this person is a jnani, this person is a jnani, you are not seeing the jnana, because the jnana is not a person. The jnana is that fundamental awareness I am, which is shining in the heart of all of us. So Sadhu Om, this is what I learned from Sadhu Om, the importance of devotion to Bhagavan, the importance of devotion to his own original writings, to understanding what he has written in works like Arunachal Stuti Panchakam and Ulidu Napadu, and the importance, above all, of putting it into practice. As Bhagavan says, Tanne dinamaha kanka, daily. That means constantly we need to be trying to turn our attention within to be self-attentive. So, I was fortunate to be with Sadhu Om because he made it clear the importance of taking Bhagavan as guru, understanding Bhagavan's teachings and putting them into practice. There's just one other question, which was asked last time on the YouTube live chat. One Harish Subramaniam asked a question. Does Ramana suggest the attitude we have when facing a difficulty, e.g. an incurable progressive illness? I'm very sorry to hear about it if you are suffering from such an illness, but the attitude Bhagavan taught us that we should have, whether we are facing difficulties or favorable situations, our attitude should always be the same. Our attitude should be, to whom does all these difficulties appear? To whom do all these pleasures or these the good things of life and the bad things of life, to whom do they all appear? To me. We need to turn our attention back towards ourselves. We also, so long as our attention is turned outwards, we should also have an attitude of surrender. That is, whatever happens in our life, whether seemingly good or seemingly bad, it's all happening according to prarabdha. Prarabdha is the fruit of our past karmas that Bhagavan has selected for us to experience in this in our present life. So it's a, since they have fruit that he has selected, as Bhagavan often said, whether you call it prarabdha or God's will, it's one and the same thing, because the prarabdha is his will. That is what the fruit that he has selected. Why he has selected these fruit for us to experience? Because these are the fruit that are most conducive to our spiritual development, to our going deeper in this spiritual path. So whatever happens in our life is his will. Nothing can happen. No good thing can happen. No bad thing can happen. Actually, there's no such thing as good and bad. It's only our mind that says, oh, this is good, this is bad. I've got a terminal illness, that is bad. I've got something else that is good. Good and bad, it's a mind's judgment. What is really good is turning our attention within and holding on to self-attentiveness. That is the way to surrender ourselves. So whatever happens in our life, we should joyfully accept it. As Bhagavan says in verse 2 of Arunachal Patikam, Ninishtam Enishtam, your will is my will, Imbedaku, that is happiness for me. So even if we are faced with very difficult situation, even if we're faced with poverty, illness, even a terminal illness like cancer or some such thing, we should accept it joyfully. Okay, it is Bhagavan's will that I should undergo this. That's his will is my will. That is happiness for me. Ninishtam Enishtam Imbadaku, as Bhagavan says to sings to Arunachala. Bhagavan is teaching us what attitude we should have. We should accept whatever happens in our life, we should accept it joyfully. That doesn't mean that if you've got an illness and treatment is available, you shouldn't take treatment. Just like the diseases come according to prarabdha, the opportunity to have treatment has also come according to prarabdha. So we follow the advice of the doctors. If we've got cancer, we may be asked, the doctor may advise us to have surgery, or they may advise chemotherapy or something. We accept that. That's also Bhagavan's will. We take it all as Bhagavan's will. But inwardly, we are unperturbed because we have taken the burden from our head and we placed it on the train. The train is Bhagavan. He's carrying all the burden. Let us not carry the burden of our life on our head. Let us leave it all to him. He knows what is best for us. As Sadhuam sang in one of his songs, Ena kena vendum, ena vendam, embadeya lam, ene vidya nangarindu emperumane. What is necessary and what is not necessary, or what do I need or what do I not need? More than me, it is my Lord who knows very well. So he knows what is good for us. If we are suffering from a terminal illness, that may seem to us to be bad, but it cannot be bad because it cannot happen without Bhagavan's consent. So Bhagavan knows that is what is good for us. So even the things that seem to us to be bad are all for good. Whatever happens, Ellam Nammeke, everything is for good, because under Bhagavan's Arulakshya, under the rule of Bhagavan's grace, nothing can ever go wrong. There's a saying in Tamil, Avan Arulalandri or Anuvamasayadu, except by his grace, not even an atom can move. Bhagavan often used to refer to that saying. So this is nothing, but there is no such thing as bad. Whatever happens is good because it's all happening according to the will of Bhagavan. So let us surrender ourselves wholly to his will and accept whatever happens is happening to me according to his will and is therefore what is best for me. And in order to go deep in this path of self-surrender, we need to cling firmly more and more to self-attentiveness, as Bhagavan indicates in the first sentence of the 13th paragraph of Nana. Anma chintane tavira, vera chintane kalambavadaku, satram idum kodamal, apmanishta paranai irapade, tanai isanuku alipadam. That means being atmanishta param, one who's firmly establishes oneself, without giving even the slightest room to rising up any thought other than atmachintana, other than self-attentiveness, that is giving oneself to God. So the true surrender is nothing but holding fast to I am, trying to be more and more self-attentive, and thereby not giving room to the rising of any other thoughts. Let anything happen to this body, let Bhagavan take care of it. It's his lookout, not my lookout. My only aim in life is to surrender myself wholly to him. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya.
Thank you so much, Mr. James. This is again one of the most wonderful sessions that we've had with you.
Well, thank you to Sushil and Harish for very nice questions.
Absolutely, I think both of them have been very forthcoming in sharing their queries, and that has benefited most of us. So thank you to both of them, of course. I would now request Narayanji at the Delhi Shrine Kendra to initiate Akshar Manamalai chanting, followed by Arati.
Karunarunamani Tirinavadinigal Karumaksharamana Magamare Terunadiya Tiru Ariya Terumana Tiriya Paragudal Porulaga Karunagaramuni Ramanari and Muva Gaina Suviyadu Gadiyaga Arunachalam Dina அகமே அறிவோடும் ஆழ்வார் சிவனுலகு ஆழ்வாரே அருணாச்சலவரன் கேட்ட அக்ஷரமண மாலை சாற்ற கருணாகர கணபதியே கரமருள் காப்பாய் அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Mena Agame, Ninai Pavaragande Verarupai, Arunachala, Aragi Sundarambol, Agamum, Avinam, Yupom Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Agamugundirtum, Agaguga Shirayat, Amarvitaven Kol, Arunachala, Aru. காயனை ஆண்டனை அகற்றி அகிலம் பழித்திடும் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா இப்பழித்தம் உனையே நினைப்பித்தாய் இனி யார் விடுவார் அருணாச்சலா ஈற்றிடும் மன்னை தெரிதருள் புரிவோம் இதுவோ உனதருள் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா உனையே மாற்றி ஓடார் உள்ளத்தின் மேல் உறுதிய இருப்பாய் அருணாச்சலா ஊர் சுற்று உளம்பிடார் உன்னை கண்டு அடங்கி உன்னழகை காட்டருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா என்னை அழித்து போர் என்னை களவாவிடு இதுவோ ஆண்மை அருணாச்சலா ஏன் இந்த உறக்கம் என்னை பிறர் இழுக்க இது உன கழகோ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா ஐம்புல கள்வன் அகத்தினில் புகும்போல் அகத்தில் நீ இல்லையோ அருணாச்சலா ஒருவன் முன்னை ஒளித்தேவர் வருவார் இது அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல ஓங்கார பொருள் உயர்வில்லை உனையார் அறிவார் அருணாச்சலா அவ்வை போல எனக்கும் அருளை தந்து ஆழ்வது உன் கடன் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி வாழ்க ஸ்வயம் பிரகாசம் வாழ்க வாழ்கவே வாழ்க ஸ்வயம் பிரகாசம் வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சுத்தாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே ஏழுலங்க ஜீவன் முக்தி இன்பம் பொங்கவே ஏழுலங்க ஜீவன் முக்தி இன்பம் பொங்கவே இதயமாகும் இறைவனாகி இல்லாமோங்கவே இதயமாகும் இறைவனாகி இல்லாமோங்கவே பாழ்மனம் மகன்றை வாழ்வு பாழ் போட்டொழிகவே பாழ்மனம் மகன்றை வாழ்வு பாழ் போட்டொழிகவே பரம சச்சிதானந்த ஆத்ம பால் பொழிகவே பரம சச்சிதானந்த ஆத்ம பால் பொழிகவே வாழ்க சுயம் பிரகாசம் வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சுத்தாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே கட்டிலாத நித்திய ஜீவ தத்மமோங்கவே கட்டிலாத நித்திய ஜீவ தத்மமோங்கவே தன்மயத்தி சின்மயந்தடைத்தி ஓங்கவே தன்மயத்தி சின்மயந்தடைத்தி ஓங்கவே எட்டு திக்கும் அம்ச சோகம் எதிரொலிக்கவே எட்டு திக்கும் அம்ச சோகம் எதிரொலிக்கவே எல்லாம் பிரம்மம் என்னும் உண்மை இறங்கிக்கவே எல்லாம் பிரம்மம் என்னும் உண்மை இறங்கிக்கவே வாழ்க சுயம் பிரகாசம் வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சுத்தாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே அம்ச சோகம் அதுவே எல்லாம் அம்ச சோகம் ஓம் பூர்புவஸ்வ தஸ்ஸோதர்வவர்ணியம் भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् देवसवितप्रस्व सत्यं दोर्धन प्रसन्नामि अमृतं स्वाहा ओम प्राणाय स्वाहा ओम अपानाय स्वाहा ओम ज्ञानाय स्वाहा ओम उदानाय स्वाहा ओम समानाय स्वाहा ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा ओम नमो भगवती श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः ओम नमो भगवती श्री अरुणाचल रमणाय नमः ओम नमो भगवती श्री अरुणाचल रमणाय नमः ओम नमो भगवती श्री कात्याय मुरुगाय वन्नी देवाय नमः सुब्रह्मण्याय नमः स्वामीनाथने नमः दक्षिणामूर्तिये नमः नटराजने नमः भैरवने नमः नंदीमहेश्वराय नमः शिव पार्वतीये नमः ओम नमः शिवाय 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 नमः प्रगण्डगोसीरं नैवेद्यं समर्पयामि मध्ये मध्ये पानीयं समर्पयामि अमृतोपचारसूत्रामृतं समर्पयामि नीराजनं समर्पयामि नीराजनानन्तरम् आस्मनीयं समर्पयामि समायुक्तं नागवल्ली तलयोगं कर्पूर्ण सूर्ण संयुक्तं प्रतिगुदां कर्पूर नीराजनं श्रीरमण महर्षिके समर्पयामि ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल रमणाय नमः कात्याय नमः मुरुगाय नमः यो भाम पुष्पम वेद पुष्पवान प्रजावान पद्मान भवति चंद्रमा भावा पुष्पम पुष्पम पुष्पवान प्रजावान पद्मान भवति ओम तत् ब्रह्मा ओम तत् वायु ओम तत् आत्मा ओम तत् सत्यम ओम तत् सर्वम ओम तत् पुरो नमः अंतर्जन्य भूदेश गुहाया विश्वमूर्ति वंदे नस्तम संकारस्तम मित्रस्तम रुद्रस्तम विष्णुस्तम ब्रह्मस्तम प्रजापति ओम तदावो ज्योतिर्सो ऊर्ध्वो गुरुपुरुषोरम कर्मणानां प्रजयादने विद्यालय के अमृतत्व मानसु परेण नाह पीतम गुहाय विप्रातयो विसर्ति वेदांत विज्ञान से नित्यदाता संन्यास योगा तदय शुद्ध सत्वा ते ब्रह्मलोके तु परांतकाले परामृतात्मनि मुच्यन्ति सर्वे धर्म विभावं परमेत्मभूतं यत् पुण्डरीकं पुरमद्य सकुंसदं तत्रावित्तगरम कगनं विशोभत् तस्मिन् यन्न तद्वादित्यं यो वेदांतो स्वर प्रोक्तो वेदांत सच्चे प्रतिष्ठितः तस्य प्रकृतिलीनस्य परसमहेश्वरः मंत्र पुष्पम अमृतवर्षिकी समर्पयामि मंत्र पुष्पम कार्तिकाय मुर्गावल्ली दैवानि समर्पयामि मंत्र पुष्पम सुब्रह्मण्यं समर्पयामि मंत्र पुष्पम श्री दक्षिणामूर्ति समर्पयामि मंत्र पुष्पम श्री गंगाधर मंत्र पुष्पम श्री भैरव समर्पयामि मंत्र पुष्पम श्री नंदी महेश्वराय समर्पयामि मंत्र पुष्पम श्रीमन् शिव पार्वती समर्पयामि हरि ओम हरि ओम हरि ओम यानि यानि सर्पावानि देवमात्र विराजत तानि तानि प्रचति तदच्चन पदे पदे ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल रमण अरुणाचल रमणाय 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 कार्त्याय दुर्गाय सुब्रह्मण्याय स्वामिनाथन दक्षिणामूर्ति नटराजरे भैरवरे नंदी महेश्वराय शिव पार्वतीये नमः ओम नमः शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय नमः ओम शिवाय नमः ओम शिवाय नमः ओम शिवाय नमः हरि ओम हरि ओम हरि ओम
Namo Ramana. This brings us to the closure of today's satsang with Mr. Michael James. We shall meet Mr. James again in 2022 in the second on the second Sunday of January. And till then, may I please remind everyone that Ramana Kendra Delhi shall be celebrating Bhagavan's Jayanti on 21st of December at 7:30 a.m. I have already sent out the details through WhatsApp. Email and SMSs shall be going out tomorrow. Till we meet again, Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.